Okay, so I've got us recording now. Let me turn tones off. Okay. So, LaDonna, I'm curious, what basically was Patty Colorobles and Sandra Walter talking about at the conference they did in Tucson?
Well, it was 5 days of lots of meditations, but basically the mission was to engender us in terms of being able to imagine more with our senses what the new earth is going to be like. So we worked on that so that if we could start to perceive this in our imaginations, we could start to create it. So the new patterns have been released out into the mental, emotional, and so forth realms so that we can start to create from these.
That's right. I mean, it's very similar to what most people are talking about with the astrology, and also Lauren Gorgo. When I read her thing that she put out at the beginning of this month for the 888, it really is what the Lionsgate was for. Was turning us really back to the true pure zero point that we keep doing. Of course, I've said this with the last several calls. It all got initiated with the last eclipses.
Right, and this, like I said, we're just continuing to complete and purify and hopefully, get past the old stuff so that all the new stuff can truly be purely coming in.
That's right. Yeah, that is the long and the short of it. And it's so funny. We've been talking about this for so long. Oh my gosh, especially those of us that have gone to Jude stuff, we feel like we've heard the same thing ever since 2012.
That's right.
And it's all been true. It's interesting. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the mute now.
Yeah.
Okay. That's quieter. It cuts down on the noise. So, it's interesting, when we look at the levels of clearing that we have been doing over time periods, we may think about today, when we started, whenever our journeys were, 2012, or, some of you people have worked with Jude since the 90s, doing really heavy deep clearing and cleaning. And again, it's a process, but what's interesting with all of that, when we're here in 3D, we look at things through linear time. And, of course, linear time doesn't really exist. And that's what's been, continually dropping off and falling away, and perception of reality is not something where we think, oh, way back then. It's like we've dropped so much history that if you're only in this moment, then you're no longer referencing the past, and you're no longer referencing the pain and the suffering or the stories that you carry with your family and your friends and business associates, whatever. So, we really have been, though, as we continually spiral into just this now moment, I think 2024 really was, especially with the eclipses back in April, it really did take us back to a pure zero point for those that had done that much level of work. And so, and again, these last few calls I've been talking about, to the extent that we can, cutting off the small monkey mind and really just staying in our hearts. And it's like, as we're still attending ourselves, and also even those, our family and friends, parents, grandparents, kids, grandkids, whatever. It's like the part of service to humanity doesn't really go away. And it's like, we're still called to be in the immediacy of a moment. And, love says that you will attend whoever it is, that comes to you. It may not even be family. It may be a stranger that walks up in the grocery or Walmart. God bless. walking through Walmart at any time, I just still look around and shake my head. And of course, I've got to release judgment. Can't be any judgment with any of this stuff. But it's still it shows me the vast difference in frequency that people are holding and carrying. There's still so many people that seem like they're going to just deeper sleep amounts. Between being stuck in their phones and their iPads and television or movies, all those things are just distractions from, going into our own hearts and attending whatever it is we came here to attend and what we came here to do, with our divine missions, which I'm sure, Patricia Cole-Robles and Sandra Walter talked about in Tucson too. But it really is, in a place where we're trying to envision our highest potential outcomes. What does that look like? And if we're referencing, the past of where we came from, it keeps us in a place where it's more difficult, I think, to create and envision what we want. And again, we're kind of in this place where I've always called astrology, spirituality with training wheels. It's like anyone that's gotten their chart, they will look at it, and a good astrologer will tell you, oh, you've had this and you've had this at this time, and during this year you had the Saturn return at, age 29, or even half of that, 14 and a half years, and half of that, 7 years. There's different returns, any of you that had, astrology readings, and they'll lay out for you where you are in the progression of your soul based on what happened. You can put the picture together because they'll tell you a year and you'll be like, oh, that happened, this happened. And so, some transits, we always have the personal transits, when you have Mars returns, Venus returns, Mercury returns happen 3 times a year. So we're constantly going through how we see our world. Mercury is, again, communication. But it doesn't always have to be communication between us and someone else. It's communication between us and God. So imagine, from whenever you're born, we're born, 3 times a year we go on these inward journeys, conscious or not, and have these epiphany moments where we go in, and or we don't. If you're really caught in someone else's storylines or playing out your karmic histories, and that's what we've done up until now. It's like you find yourself in a creation, and then a week later, 10 years later, 20 years later, you're like, how did I create that? You start to question, how did I get here? And it's like that's what we've been giving up. All of the karmic creations and the timelines that we had to go through based on the karmic, genetic, and ancestral inheritances. So, and of course, that's one thing that Jude would take us through in the workshops, and all of us that have done personal sessions over the years, to really core that, clean that out in the atomic and subatomic levels. And again, for every single person, it is absolutely unique. And this is the part that's mind-boggling too. I've mentioned this a couple times before, but it certainly is worth repeating right now. 8 billion unique soul expressions on the planet. And what does that look like? And I think that's the biggest thing that we really miss in the bigger picture. When we're looking in the external world and we hear, things on the news, or you hear people reference other things, whatever. We don't really have an understanding or capacity to really know the different ways that all of us as humans express ourselves, on the planet, and also the karmic inheritances. All of those things. And so when you're looking at someone else, it could be the family, it could be friends, whatever, and you may wonder, well, why am I still having to attend these people? Why am I still having to do this? Why are they not shifting? Part of it has to do with the karmic inheritance, and depending on what the soul pre-wrote, they may have to have 30 years of the same cycle that hits them up in the face, boom, 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 and it's constantly. But it happens for all of us. And for different people, it happens in different ways. And some of the astrologers talk about the degrees of the signs in your chart, and those correspond to years. And sometimes it could be months, but usually it's years. So that gives them a good frame of reference when they're explaining, if you had this marriage, it probably correlated to this amount of time. Like my father ended up, just almost like clockwork. He got married in August of '92, and he got divorced 29 years later. Almost to the month. It was like, and that's a complete Saturn return. And it's like when you start become, familiar with those patterns, it helps you release them. So, and I mentioned that for one reason. If we are now at this Lionsgate portal, which was the 888, and we're coming off of that, because it's only been like a week, and that was right after we had those very powerful Capricorn full moons, which was, the first one was on the summer solstice, June 21st, and it was at 1 degree Capricorn. So it was at the beginning of the structures that formulate Capricorn. It's Capricorn in everyone. It's in every person. It's in every national chart. Every nation that begins. It has a certain time when those charters are written, and wherever Capricorn is in the chart, it affects every nation. It affects when buildings are built. It affects every single structure in this world of form is affected by those things. And, of course, depending on where the house placements were, would be the way that those things are being affected with the moon cycles. But, and again, so the first one was at 1 degree Capricorn. Then the next one was July 21st at 29 degree Capricorn. So those literally bookended the structures of, that's not just, relationships in our lives. It's how we perceive ourselves as God. And that's a really deep knowing. And that's a big statement. But it really is true, because that's our beliefs are a structure. We don't think of them as a structure because we think it's a mental thought form. And yet it is reflective of a structure. It's a structure that comes from the mind, and it's not coming out of the heart. The heart is absolutely the deepest emotional connection to source that we have. And the mind should always be subservient to the heart. Well, not necessarily subservient, but work in tandem with. And that's one of the things Jude, always would explain in workshops and, things with us, retreats. When you're really deeply immersed in your heart, then your mind will be in a union and communion place, so that you're creating something from the deepest essence of who you are, and not from a place of karma or from some place that you're drawn to from an old false reality system. So it really is a new, it's the original way we were designed to create with the Adam Cadman body when we came here, and humanity first seeded the original Adam Cadman. And so it's like we did all that clearing, with the solstice until the 21st, and then the new moon in Cancer, which was sandwiched right in the middle, and it was at 14 degrees, which is in the middle of the Cancer sign. So you had Cancer and Capricorn. Cancer's all about the heart, and it was centering us right in the middle of that sign. Capricorn, the structures, bookended the structures. So all of this stuff, you can't make this up. It's perfectly timed. It's strategically made for all of us to go through. And again, we're all going through it. So depending on who we are in the world mean, you'll have people in India that are perceiving this in a very unique way according to their soul contracts up to this point, being born into that society and that culture. We as people in the United States, as Americans here, we have all of these identities projected onto us from each nation that we're born into. So, and again, those are really false. None of those things exist. All the nations that are here and they're made, those were created by man. The land was divided and said, well, you are this nation and you should pledge allegiance to this. Well, at the end of the day, when we go through and we do the stuff we're doing, we can all wake up and say, you know what, I'm a human. It's like we're all humans. And that really takes priority and precedence over any other division, label, and definition that could be, put onto us for control. And those are the things we're really giving up. And I don't know how many of you search on YouTube for different, people, that are talking about spiritual stuff and awakenings and whatever. But there are so many people that are, in their own way, they're at a certain frequency. They've done a certain amount of healing for themselves, but they go on. Everybody's finding their tribe, whatever that looks like. And so you may find someone that is helping people leave marriages that don't work. You may be finding people that are healing from sexual abuse, child abuse, any type of the abusive patterns. I mean, there's so many abusive patterns that run through. The point is, no matter where you are on your journey, your frequency is going to connect you with whoever and whatever you need in that particular moment of time. And where we've gotten to, I believe, is a place where enough people are sharing a certain frequency of nothing, where they've gone in and cleared the patterning out of the emotional body, the spiritual body, the mental body, and the physical, where they're literally just here now. And they're in immediacy, which is, I've explained this in the last several calls. When you're in immediacy, there's no agenda. That's one thing, Jude used to really take people into, is getting rid of the agendas. And anytime your mind wants to understand something, you just let it go. You don't have to understand. I have a feeling that many of us on the call have had, I believe, jobs and relationships where circumstances presented something that we just couldn't live with anymore. There was a tension. There was just some dynamic that you said, no, I can't do this. And so that's where we were. In a way, part of that is it's kind of a complex dynamic, because in one sense, a case could be made that there's a dynamic there, something came up, and we thought, I don't want to do that. So you may be running away from karma or facing something that was within your soul to do. And some people can make one case for that. Another person may make a case and say, no, by choosing to put down my sword and walk away from the situation, that you're stepping into your own mastery and saying, I don't need to create that anymore because I've gained the lesson, I gained the wisdom. And so some people are really talking about a spiritual bypassing. And I do bring that up at this particular point in time. Spirit said it's kind of an important thing, because you just really want to just look at your own life and decisions you're making, just to be sure, just for your own self, for clarity, that you're not spiritually bypassing something that you need to go through. And again, I mean, there is no right or wrong way to the experiential in how we're living life on this planet. there's not. I mean, there's certainly bigger, I think, universal laws that we're all bound to, and yet at the same time, as powerful creators, we are allowed to come here and experience extremes of human expression. So many people come here and go through extreme pain, extreme suffering, all these things. And again, I don't want to really focus on those things, but I bring them up as a frame of reference for each of us, because as we look at our own lives and decide what's important and what's not important, it may just really strengthen where you are as you look at your path. So before I take us into the meditation of all this, I really do invite you to go in and ask yourself, what does that look like for yourself? Lauren Gorgo wrote about the 888 Supergate. She called it rerouting to rainbow realms. But she was talking about how we're literally jumping so many timelines, and most people don't. I mean, if you were to have a conversation with your family or friends about, I'm jumping timelines, they'd look at you like you're crazy. Like, what the hell are you talking about? But of course, we've done this enough that you can wake up one day and you're just not who you were yesterday, certainly a year ago. But that's true for everyone, I think, on the planet. And if you get a chance to read the Lauren Gorgo, I know she's the paid version for like $17, but I think the free version at least has some information that you might like. But we really are returning to the core of who we are, and it's like to give up the stories. We're in that last part of just allowing ourselves to become, and so again, that's what this 888's for. It's really lining us up. This moon. Let's see. Some of the astrologers are talking about this is the sturgeon moon, which is about harvest. We're going into fall, which technically won't begin until like a month from now. But we're starting to harvest some of what we've done so far this year, and depending on the level of things you've shifted within your own mind, your heart, and soul, you are starting to really be able to step into your gifts. And so I think for each of us, again, that's going to be a different place. Some of you on this call, I know, are still clearing out a lot of heavy things in the physical. There's still places where the physical body has really gotten into some disease patterns, and I know Jude, would help different ones of you clear things depending on where you were at that point. And obviously, when Jude left and transitioned, of course, it really left each of us in a place where we were on our own. It was between us and God. And I think that when we go back and observe where we were at any given point till now, we're invited to say to ourselves, do I need to carry this anymore? And I think that's the big thing. If you have anything left before we go into the meditation, really just ask yourself, do I need to carry this, no matter what it is? And I know a lot of you have really, I've gotten great feedback, from several of you who've written about these calls and how you feel like you feel energetically cleared, you feel lighter, you feel, just really shifted. And that's the point of doing this. And so, that's really what we're invited to do. You're jumping timelines like you wouldn't believe. I don't know how many of you have tracked that type of thing, but we really are. And just because you wake up this morning, by the end of the day, you can jump a timeline. And the other thing, that I will say can assist this, and I can say it from personal experience, the more you can release anything physical in your life, in your home, if you're impacted with stuff, get rid of as much stuff as you can. Like if it's something you just really don't need or use, all it's doing is taking up space, and it creates density. And I can tell you, personal experience, this is difficult to shift and allow stuff to go. And I'm carrying stuff for quite a while. From me, Mom, my sister. There's like a dozen people's stuff in this house, and I'm still clearing and getting rid of. But I also remember back to a time when I was younger, when I didn't have all the stuff. I didn't have the material. I had a very simple existence, and I felt so light and I felt so free. It really does add to your freedom if you don't have as much stuff. And so that's one big thing we're really being asked to do on this moon of releasing. As we go into the meditation, sit with in your heart and ask yourself what you have, what's important to keep, what's important to just say, I don't need that anymore. And it can be relationships that, especially the physicality of our lives. If there's things that don't work, if there's things that are broken, allow them to go, because they're certainly not serving you. If everything in our environment is a reflection of who we are currently in this moment, then we don't want a bunch of broken stuff, because it's not serving anything. And it's really that much core and brave releasing that we're being asked to do. Something that you thought you really had to carry, if you look at it and say, I really don't need that. We're really being invited to do that level of work. And the other thing, too, is some of you may be in a place, of course, depending on whoever answers this call, listens to this call at some point. If you're in a place where your soul is ready to make a jump, and that may be changing locations. You may say, you feel like you're tired, or you feel like your life is played out in a certain location, and you may feel a yearning in your heart that wants something different, and you don't know how to make the jump. Sometimes you just go and sit. Really sit. We're also going to go. I'm going to take all of you into this tonight. Again, Spirit's going to take us all really to the core and ask all of us, what's important? Where do you want to be? And what do you want to create? And there's a part of me that thinks that I will be traveling a lot, and yet I don't. It's obviously not happening right now, because I've got 3 people, older, that I'm, assisting, and I feel like I'm tethered here, and I can't go away, and there's no freedom. And yet, this moon cycle is also, a lot of the astrologers saying the same thing. We're being released from all the final karmic contracts. Everything is zeroing out if it hasn't already up to this point. And I don't think it's going to be just this week, obviously, but I think through the rest of this year, because we're going to have the Pluto and Capricorn retrograde, which is going to get rid of all the rest of the structures. And that's why Spirit's really guiding me to suggest these things to you now, because the more you can release on your own, the more that you won't have to have shocking releases, brought to you through Spirit for the, progression of your soul. And some people will still need to go through those types of things. But the more that we can co-communicate with God and co-create with God, the more we make decisions for ourselves, we're taking our power. And it really is, this is the name of the game this year, stepping into your power. And again, that's going to be different for every single person. And it's like, what do you want to create? And one thing Jude always used to say, it's like, I think one of the things that humans are scared to death of are taking their freedom. Pure freedom. And that would mean you're free to literally get up every single day and do whatever you want to do. You could travel, you could do anything. And yet you can also still be of service to either yourself, your friends, family, humanity, what have you, through subtle shifts. So depending on where you are, we're being invited to go into our hearts and ask ourselves what we want to create. And again, this is a full moon about releasing core things that keep us tied down. So, and again, I've sent all the astrology. I'm not going to go through and read. I thought about reading a couple of things, but I'm going to leave that up to you guys, because each of you will go in at the level of your own soul growth, and you'll find the things that really speak to your heart and soul. And I'm trying not to guide, too much and spoon feed too many things. Because one thing I do know is when I started doing all this on my own years ago, when I started all this in 2006, but all the books, every time I would read something, there's something about the journey. When you go on and you do the searching and you do the hunting and you find the diamond that works for you, and you find those things. There's something about a bought lesson more than a told one. I could tell you a lesson, but it's not quite the same. There's something about taking responsibility for going and deep diving in our exploration. And so, I have brought several of them to you and sent them to you in email, but they're there, but you still have to do the work and read them. And then your soul has to go through, and your heart will decide what parts, assist you in the evolution of the soul, and clearing out things out of your life to really just keep you in a place of pure ecstasy and joy. That's really what we came here to be. There's a couple other people on YouTube that I've been, come across my path recently. That's like, wow, that person's just always up. It's like, how do you do that? I still feel like I'm clearing so much stuff. But anyway, okay, that's enough of all that. I just wanted to kind of give you all kind of an overview of where to drop in with all of this, and invite you to fall deeply into your heart. And and again, for any of you that are in deep levels of pain, either emotional pain, physical pain, anything like that, we're really going to go in and amplify that for each other, for releasing anyone that's having a harder time on the journey, but also igniting that place. And again, I've said this in a lot of the talks too, that moment of precipitation. It's like you may have a thought and think, I want to create this. And before actually going into that, step fully into what would it feel like to create what you're creating before you actually create it. In other words, you're so crystal clear and you can see a bigger picture in the entanglement of your creation. Let's call it that. Because we don't realize so many times when we make a decision to create something, how it will affect those around us. If we make a decision to either do something, to build something, to change something, it does. Every nanosecond of your life you're making a decision, and every nanosecond that decision is going to have a ripple effect. So that's what I think we're being invited to do. Step into the precipitation before something's created. Go in your heart before actually manifesting the creation. And again, we also want to take care, because if you're whatever's in your mind and heart, it gets created immediately. It's almost like there's instant karma, but it's not really karma anymore. It's just called immediacy. So if you think it, so it is. So we have to be so crystal clear and careful with our thoughts that you don't want stray thoughts going out where you may look at something and say, oh, God, I hate that, or I don't like that, or don't like this, or don't like that person. We have to become we have to own every single instant of our thoughts and our feelings, everything, because it all counts. It's like the training wheels are off, I think, or we may have them for the rest of the year, but again, imagine all 8 billion people having to do this, and we're all on this learning curve. Many people have already been doing this for a long time, but wherever we are, that's what we're being asked to do, is become so responsible with the totality of our energy, all of it. And so on that note, that's where I will leave you with this before we go in and really and just go in. So, okay, so depending on where you are, let's see. Yeah, it's about 8:45. So if you're in a room with other people or something, just if you can go into your own space, either lay down, sit, rest, relax, get as comfortable as you can, because you really are putting yourself first. That's one thing that we have to learn to do if we're not doing it, is you take care of yourself first before you can care for anyone else. And it's one thing we've always had, I think, mixed up. You're supposed to do for everybody else and then do for you, and that generally does not work. So just wherever you are, get really still. And just let your body just fall into place wherever you are. Get your pillows adjusted. Get your legs where you want them, and get your head where propped. Because the more comfortable you are going into this, the deeper you're going to allow the cellular structure to shift. And you will also allow for deeper healing. It's so funny. I mean, when I go into these invitations, it's like everything shifts in me almost immediately. It's like Spirit just comes right in and starts really aligning us. And I could go in and say we're cleaning and clearing chakras, and we are. All of those things are happening. But what's happening now is we're just going into pure immediacy. And when we go in these meditations, all these things do come more immediately. So, and that's the power of now. Like Eckhart Tolle talks about, it's like we go in with an intention, we're still, and then Spirit's there and cleaning and clearing. And the other thing to know is that it's really hard to believe for some people to know that all the unseen world is still here. All the masters. I mean, I'll actually go through that like I usually do, just to remind you. When you go through and do your own meditation practices, one thing that I've been doing this for years, and I always get met with it. It's like I call in Mother, Father, God. I call in every ascended master through infinite presence. I call in the entire archangelic kingdoms. I call in the 7 mighty Elohim, builders of form. I call in all of the elemental kingdoms. I call in Saint Germain and the violet flame, which really burns off all of the disconcordance and all of the incongruent patterns that we've had. I call in the diamond Christ light, and I call in the 12th golden ray. There's different rays. I won't go into all those, but you can Google sometime on the internet and ask about the different rays. But the point is, all of those things are always available to you. And when you are asking for a prayer or asking for whatever it is for yourself or someone else, again, we're always invited to not be too specific, because we may be standing in the way of what God may do for us or someone else. In other words, you may pray for someone to have something or what have you. But if you're projecting any agenda onto that person in life form, you may think you're doing them a service, but you may be creating a limitation in their creation. And I used to, we never were trained about that, but it really is true. Each person's soul is in a specific place, and it's always knowing what it needs to do at any given moment of time. We never want to project onto someone else what we think is better for them, and we would ask that no one can project that onto us. And so if we can keep ourselves in a 0 point, then we don't have an agenda. We no longer have a personal agenda. We allow ourselves to really merge with Mother, Father, God, and we ask for the highest divine creation in any given moment of time. Feel the frequency of this energy that's coming into your field, into all of our fields. Each one of you will have different phenomena happen as you listen to this call. For anybody that listens to it later in a recording, that's one thing. I'll sometimes forget to mention this, but all of these recordings are timeless. They are in the immediate moments of time based on where astrological configurations and the frequencies are in this moment. And yet, there's always someone that will, as they shift and go through the soul progression, will find this call later and say, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. This is exactly what I needed. And yet the people on the call may have already shifted and gone through to a different timeline. Again, I mean, it's all very unique, and yet we're all still shifting and in our place with divine union with God, uniquely on our own life path. So this particular call is really about going and releasing with this Sturgeon full moon on August the 19th. It's not about the date of August the 19th, though. The energy in this call is set up with the entire company of heaven to clear any old patterning, languaging, ideology, and take us back to 0 point. These calls are always going back to 0 point. So, allow this energy. It's coming in the crown, but it's literally emanating from the heart of God. And it's going into the immediacy of your heart. There's never, ever any separation. Feel this expansion. I've taken all of you in different calls, and we've gone through and we've cleared the chakras, and we've gone into the bones, and we've gone into the organs, and we've gone into all the systems, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the nervous system. Imagine that I no longer have to articulate all the different separate systems. Every one of you on the call today, even anyone listening to this call at any point in the future doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist. This call is immediacy for you. If you're listening to it, you're in the immediacy of your moment. Which means there's no separation of your chakras. All the systems are in perfect, complete function as one unit within your physicality. As you clear all of the mental patterning, all of the miscreated thought forms, all of the distortions, they're being cleared from the mental and emotional bodies, but they're also being cleared from old spiritual belief systems. And they're being cleared out of your physical body. You're being taken back to your divine etheric blueprint. Have you noticed how with each of the calls that we've been on since the April 8th eclipse of this year, everything's more immediate. As we speak it, so it is. In these calls, we're also activating with each time the Spiritu Sancti, which is the high throat chakra. You're each in silence, and yet it's being activated for you. As I mentioned earlier, we're being asked to take totality of responsibility for every nanosecond of thought and feeling that comes and emanates from us as a being. Every nanosecond. Go deeply into that. Many of you right now are probably experiencing your heart chakra feels like it's just opening up. It feels like it's going lighter and lighter, and it is. We're going through a depth clearing that we've not ever done in lifetimes. Like LaDonna mentioned earlier, having gone to Tucson and attending the Light Conference with Patricia Cota-Robles and Sandra Walter. Imagine putting all of those people in one space. And this is happening all over the earth. Everyone's doing it in their own way. It may be through a yoga class. It may be through even organized religious events. As long as your heart is as pure as possible for where you are in your soul evolution, you're going to continue to shift. There are no wrong ways to do this. And again, 8 billion souls on the planet are uniquely expressing and shifting and going through the evolution of the soul. We're all releasing the false belief systems of, oh, I'm an American, or oh, I'm a French person, or I'm this, or I'm a boy or a girl. At the end of the day, we're each a soul. a very expansive and infinite soul that came here for the human existence. And yet we're taking ourselves back into pristine awareness. Even if you are finding yourself missing the mark at some point of your day, don't beat yourself up over it. You're still in the human existence. People reference 3D and 4D and 5D and all the different dimensions. And they talk about, this person is more advanced than this one or that one. As long as you're here and you're still breathing and you're eating and going through this life experience, you're still here and you've not ascended into anything else. We're certainly changing frequencies. But imagine that God could take you in through your heart and you could have an awareness of the vast levels and layers of the human expression. Aboriginal people in Australia, poor African workers that are stuck in mines in Africa, villages that are just starved and suffering. Imagine 1.4 billion people in China and India, and what it would be like to live in such density, and what the evolution of the soul feels like in those places. Depending on what country you're in, if you happen to listen to this call, you could be from any of the European countries, from any of the South American countries, or if we're here in the United States. Imagine being in any of those countries and we have no clue what the progression of the soul looks like. For so many people on this planet. How can you be here in this particular moment of time and attend you? And to know that that's enough. And as you shift you shift everything around you. You may feel like your breathing is almost going to a place where it stops, depending on how many of you go into a deep meditation, how many of you work with your breath. As I sit here and allow Spirit to channel to me whatever Spirit wants to bring forth in this particular moment of time, there's moments where I feel like I'm not even breathing. There's such a heavy buzzing, such an electrical force running through my own physicality. So much energy coming through. I certainly feel like I'm in a whole different reality system. What if just in this particular call, you're jumping a timeline? You may have started the call, and when you finish the call, you may have an answer for yourself in a huge decision you need to make in your life. Just because you came and got still. It could be a life-altering decision. Allow yourself to go in and really allow your soul to bring forth every single thing, every thought, every unknown component that you want to release. Go sit with that. Are you starting to feel the freedom? This is cosmic awareness. It's pure freedom. Allow these energies. This is all just vast adamantine particles. These are the true building blocks of our essence. It's how we build and form in the highest potentiality. Let these particles come in and clear any and all discordant energies, all miscreated thought forms, all of the false belief systems that you've taken on that have been projected onto you by your family, your friends, your nations, whoever and whatever. It doesn't exist. None of it exists. It's all a false reality. As we continually experience these solar flares that are hitting the Earth, that are going through the cosmos, they're truly enlightening us. They're lighting us up. They're burning off the dross. They're burning off all of the density that we've carried. And again, each human will perceive this and experience it in a very unique way according to the soul contract and the evolution of the soul, depending on where everyone is at any given moment of time. But of course, as time is collapsing, we're all coming in and merging to a singularity timeline, which isn't really a timeline. The immediacy just is. At some point, we will also halt the aging process. People do it all the time. Some people live into their 120s. Perhaps they do it because they don't carry the history. They don't carry the angers and the resentments and the pain and the suffering. Perhaps those souls came to 0 point on their own, very naturally, and don't think anything about it. Allow this diamond Christ light to permeate every single atomic and subatomic particle that makes up the physicality of who you are as a holographic projection. Some of you that have done deep breath work, if that's how you move energy, then go in and do that breath work. For those of you that are not experienced in breath work, just sit and pay attention to your breath. What happens if you pause your breath? In the pause, can you feel the essence of the totality of the all that is holding space as pure presence within your body? This is how different beings could go sit under a Bodhi tree. They just sit under and then become the Buddha. And they would breathe on an occasion and take a breath. But they were embodying such immense and deep light. The light body had really become activated. We're all doing it in our own time and space. Some people are much further along in the process, but it's where we're headed. As you allow this cosmic Christ light into your mind, into the brain, it's already permeating your heart. It's formulating wave structures. The waves literally wash through all of the rigidification within the old thought forms that are stuck in your cellular structure. So allow that to go into the brain tissue, the filing cabinet that has served you very well for eons of time. Allow all of this diamond Christ light to just purify and release your mind from carrying all of the stuff you don't have to carry anymore. As you continually allow these things to shift in your body, you'll find that your heart becomes lighter and lighter. Each of you will see this as a different phenomena. Almost all of you will feel like there's a heart explosion. It may not happen in this particular moment, and yet it's being activated. allow these waves to permeate every nook and cranny, every nanoparticle that makes you up, not just in this physical body, but imagine it's going into the totality of who you are as a multidimensional expression. It's reconnecting you to have awareness to all of the different human expressions that you are participating in within the multiverse. Some people talk about and explain that there are many souls that are operating with 12 unique souls that are under a master oversoul. Imagine that's happening. Imagine when you have dream states come to you and they feel so real and they're so similar to things you're experiencing here, and yet the circumstances are just very different. As a child, I remember waking up, coming back from a deep, deep place where I'm jumping across the planets. I was 6 or 7 years old, and my mom would come and wake me up to go to school, and I'd be like, no, no. And then all of a sudden, I was spiraling back down in my body, and just boom, right there I was. That's the innocence. The innocence is taken away from us. We always can place our awareness anywhere we want at any time. That's what's returning. Imagine all the timelines that you've ever experienced here on this earth are all collapsing into one moment. All of the history that you've carried karmically, what if it all falls into just the immediate moment and it dissolves? Is it possible to return to a place of pristine awareness where you don't carry an agenda, where you no longer have to play out an unconscious aspect of yourself? For some, you may feel like your brain can't take this frequency of energy. And yet, whatever's coming into your individual expression is uniquely here for you. That's between you and God. I'm not amplifying any of the energy here. Spirit's working with me as a conduit to hold space for all of us while we come together. But all of the individual experiential things you're going through is between you and God. If at any point you ever feel like the energy is too much, just ask and they can pull it back. This is part of every single human taking back our personal power. Take back your power with God. If you're not already having conversations with God every single moment, start. Actually, there is no separation between you and God, although many people perceive that they are in separation. They'll say they're atheist or they're this or that. It doesn't matter where they are. It's just where they choose to be. It's just the lostness. Some souls come here to be so completely lost. And then all of a sudden they'll go through things just miraculously, and they're found. They go through some awakening. They go through some wild, imaginative experience that they could have never dreamed, but then they are found. What if you, listening to this call, are allowing so much cosmic love and light to come through you right now that you feel so found? You've come to realize there's no separation, and there never was, between you and God. As you continually go through and experience these calls, you'll find that over time you become much more familiar with this frequency. These are very high frequencies, and they come in to the level that you've gone through and cleared within your own soul work. And they're coming in exponentially fast now. We can no longer hide from who we are. From the cosmic awareness of who we are. And again, through the rest of this year, especially with the Pluto and Capricorn retrograde, it's going to continue to go one last thing through it, through the astrological expression. And again, astrology with training wheels for the soul. Anyone having to live through Pluto and Capricorn, through that anaretic degree, it's going to continue to take away the finality of any leftover third-dimensional structures that are in our lives. Our family, our friends, it could be our jobs, it could be our homes, it could be cars, it could be any of our material world. Because Capricorn is all the structures. And Pluto is the transformation. And again, the more that we can make decisions, conscious decisions for ourselves, to release things that no longer serve us, we're going to be so far ahead, and we won't go through the type of pain and suffering that many people may experience by having to allow things to be removed from their lives through an astrological configuration, through unconscious lack of awareness. If you're on this call, you have awareness. Are you in such mastery of your thoughts and your feelings? You may not know where you're going. You may not have an answer for what it looks like in a linear direction. That's what we're being asked to give up. Don't project into your future. Be here now. Allow yourself to wake up and feel what you want to create today. How bold will your soul become? Some of you may wake up and decide, I don't want to live here anymore. And you may start packing up your house, and you may give away a bunch of things, and you may go travel someplace. And you may say, I want to go experience the world. And as an aspect of God, you can do that and go be in joy. Go be in nature. Go experience people, places, things. If you don't make certain decisions for yourself, do you know why you don't make the decisions? If you want to change careers, if you want to release a relationship, if you want any change, no matter what the change is, what keeps you stuck? Whatever that is, ask that Spirit assist you in releasing it. It can be released immediately. That's how immediate we are. That's where we're at. Everything is now. Believe it or not, you carry that much power. It's pure freedom. Imagine that we're all coming to a place where we will just be in the moment, and our soul, along with God, will guide us. Go be here. Go be here. We'll feel light as a feather. The whole magnetics of the morphogenetic field have shifted and changed. The densification no longer exists in the old form. The karmic patterns are being released. Who are you? And what do you want to create? Do you feel that vast, just cosmic joy beaming through your heart right now? This is eternal bliss. This is eternal joy. Feel this. And just let it permeate you. Again, some of you will go through an experiential awareness where it may feel like a buzzing all through your body. It's just going through and recalibrating the electrical system. It's reformulating the magnetics, how you magnetize and how you attract people, places, things, ideas into your sphere of awareness. Imagine that you've been in such deep pain today before the call. And imagine tomorrow you wake up and the pain was half of what you carried today. Or better yet, imagine the pain is gone. Imagine that you asked God, you were so far out of the way, and you had such a vast surrender to Spirit. And Spirit took your pain body away. What if your disease pattern could be released so immediately, no matter what you're carrying? What if it's so simple that as you ask it, so it is? Take great care in what you ask for. And again, if you're asking for assistance for someone else's soul, do take care that you don't make specific projections onto their soul path, because you may be creating a limiting experience for them. Keep your prayers simple for other people and even for yourself. Ask for the highest potentiality for their soul contract at any given moment of time, based on the progression of their soul and where they are. That way you're not projecting any value onto their creation. That's a way that we can ask for the highest good for someone else and yet stay in pure immediacy. By doing that, we allow that the miraculous can happen for them if they're in a place to receive it. If you are in a place to receive the miraculous. Ask to be released from any and all karmic contracts that are no longer good for the evolution of your soul. And know that if any karmic contract is still there, there's still something to learn. There's still wisdom to be gleaned from whatever is in your existence. And nothing is going to leave your life until that wisdom has taken hold, until it's gone to the very core of who you are. And also take care that if you do make a decision to walk away from a relationship, that you do get the wisdom on a core level, because if you don't, you have the potentiality to just create the same type of situation with another person. The circumstances may be different and unique, and yet that soul life lesson still has to be learned, whatever it is. The grass is not always greener on the other side. They always say, be careful what you ask for, you might get it. And this is how potent the energies are now. You're each stepping into, we all are stepping into a level of mastery where as you think it, as you feel it, so it is. Imagine that you are that powerful. But guess what? You've always been that powerful. It's just that over millennia of time, the distorted thought forms and the miscreated patterns were so skewed that we created such baggage that we had to go back through it. We've done that through the ancestral and the genetic inheritances. you can absolutely release all of that. So as one final push for release, let us be in deep gratitude for Mother, Father, God, assisting us with all of this and giving us the life force that we carry. Every ascended master through infinite presence that's been here timelessly to assist us, that have come before us. The entire archangelic kingdom, which are here, that are always in assistance when we call upon them. All of the elemental kingdoms that, when we ask for everything in the world to form, working with the mighty Elohim, the seven mighty Elohim, builders of form on the planet, which most people are not even taught about. Let us just be in deep gratitude for all of this unseen world, and not meant to be left out. Kuan Yin and Metatron, Lord Metatron, who has assisted so much with time, but we're also giving that time up. And any other master, but especially Saint Germain and the Violet Flame, for anything that's not yet been cleared, may we request the Violet Flame to just totally dissolve every single aspect of who we are that's no longer a part of who we need to be. And again, the 12th golden ray and the diamond Christ light. As you're sitting in this moment, take in the totality of this oneness. Anyone who has listened to this call, no matter where you are on the evolution of your soul, this call has taken you into a frequency beyond anything you've ever experienced. There may be some people that listen to the call later and they've gone through such a deep soul evolution, they may observe the call and say, oh, that's nice. I was there 30 years ago. There may be people that find and stumble upon this call when it's posted to YouTube and listen to it, and they have no frame of reference for anything that is said here. And yet the invitation is open for every single soul. But no, there's no separation between you and any other nanoparticle in existence. There's no separation between us and any person, place, or thing. There's no separation between us and all the planets. There's no separation between us and the universes. and any of the other mother-daughter and father-son universes. And we are not in any separation whatsoever from Mother, Father, God, the totality of everything that's ever been. Feel into that and claim it. Again, this is the next progression of a vibratory rate for the people that have regularly been listening to these calls since the April eclipses here in 2024. Anyone listening to it in the immediacy of the moment will find that it's absolutely perfect for them in that moment of time, no matter when it's listened to. Because time really doesn't exist. And yet the frequency gets more and more rich with each call. Everything's a frequency. What will you draw into your life through conscious creative expression with Mother, Father, God? And now that you can feel the power and the potentiality that each of us have, especially when we come together in a group, in union and communion with each other. There were others, but there's currently 14 people in attendance here. Well, actually 13, because computer's one of them. So, the Christ 13. It is amazing how many of these meditations end up with 13 people by the end of the meditations. It's all perfect timing. but see how you are completely different from where you were just a couple of hours ago. You have each allowed such a deep clearing and opened up such a vast space in which to create your new world, the new you. In truth, we've always been doing that every nanosecond of our existence. And yet, in this moment, it feels like so much got released, in which it did. But in every nanosecond, we're releasing exponentially more each time we go in. Allow all of this to just permeate your entire being for as long as you can. I'm going to draw the call down to a close on here, and yet I'm going to allow you to stay here in this space as long as you can, and really stay in deep union and communion with what you perceive to be as God, and allow yourself to be informed of any shifts that you're wanting to make for yourself. You're truly taking your power back. Step into your power. Infinite love and many blessings to all of you. And Om Shanti.